Hello, listener. I want to read a poem to you, one of my favorites. And in order to sort of explain this poem, I'll give a very brief introduction. The poem is about the last pagan emperor of Rome, Julian the Apostate. The interesting thing is that he was emperor after several Christian emperors, and he tried to turn back the Christianization of the Roman Empire. And well, it's an interesting poem, and his life is an interesting story about lost causes and dead forms, how things that are once in decline hardly ever recover, and at best they transform and have influence upon that which comes after them. And that's why I think the life of Julian the Apostate is very interesting. He was actually not a bad emperor. His empire was prosperous. He conducted several successful military campaigns, and in the end he conducted a fairly successful campaign in the Middle East, going all the way to the Persian Gulf. But once ambushed by I think at the time they were the Sassanid Empire, he was killed by a spear because he refused to wear his armor while pursuing an enemy ambush. And with him kind of died the dream of a pagan Rome. And the apocryphal last words, which are the title of this poem, are Vicisti Galilae, or in English, you have won, Galilean. Galilean being, of course, Jesus. So this poem is called Hymn to Proserpine, Proserpine being a different spelling for Persephone. And if you want to know Persephone as well, I suppose read up on your classics. Anyway, I will start reading the poem. Hymn to Proserpine, after the proclamation in Rome of the Christian faith, by Algernon Charles Swinburne. Vicisti, Galilae. I have lived long enough, having seen one thing, that love had an end. Goddess and maiden and queen, be near me now and befriend. Thou art more than the day or the morrow, the seasons that laugh or that weep. For these give joy and sorrow, but thou, Proserpina, sleep. Sweet is the treading of wine, and sweet the feet of the dove, but the goodlier gift is thine than foam of the grapes of love. Yea, is it not even Apollo, with hair and harpstring of gold, a bitter god to follow, a beautiful god to behold? I am sick of singing. The bays burn deep and chafe, I am fain to rest a little from praise and grievous pleasure and pain. For the gods we know not of, who give us our daily breath, we know they are cruel as love or life, and lovely as death. O gods dethroned and deceased, cast forth, wiped out in a day, from your wrath is the world released, redeemed from your chains, men say. New gods are crowned in the city. Their flowers have broken your rods. They are merciful, clothed with pity, the young compassionate gods. But for me their new device is barren. The days are bare. Things long passed over suffice, and men forgotten that were. Time and the gods are at strife. Ye dwell in the midst thereof, draining a little life from the barren breast of love. I say to you, cease, take rest. Yea, I say to you all, be at peace, till the bitter milk of her breast and the barren bosom shall cease. Wilt thou yet take all, Galilean? But these thou shalt not take, the laurel, the palms and the pane, the breasts of the nymphs in the brake, breasts more soft than a dove's, that tremble with tender breath, and all the wings of the loves, and all the joy before death, all the feet of the hours that sound as a single lyre, dropped and deep in the flowers with string that flicker like fire. More than these wilt thou give, things fairer than all these things? Nay, for a little we live, and life hath mutable wings. A little while and we die. Shall life not strive as it may? For no man under the sky lives twice, outliving his day. And grief is a grievous thing, and a man hath enough of his tears. Why should he labour and bring fresh grief to blacken his years? Thou hast conquered, O pale Galilean. The world has grown grey from thy breath. We have drunken of things Lethean, and fed on the fullness of death. Laurel is green for a season, and love is sweet for a day. But love grows bitter with treason, and laurel outlives not May. Sleep. Shall we sleep after all? For the world is not sweet in the end. For the old fates loosen and fall, the new years ruin and rend. Fate is a sea without a shore, and the soul is a rock that abides. But her ears are vexed with the roar, and her face with the foam of the tides. O lips that live the blood veins in, the leavings of racks and broads! O ghastly glories of saints, dead limbs of gibbeted gods! Thou, all men abase themselves before you in spirit, and all knees bend. I kneel not, neither adore you, but standing look to the end. All delicate days and pleasant, all spirits and sorrows are cast. Far out with the foam of the present that sweeps to the surf of the past. Where beyond the extreme sea wall and between the remote sea gates, waste water washes, and tall ships founder, and deep death waits. Where mighty, with deepening sides, clad about with the seas as his wings, and impelled of invisible tides, and fulfilled of unspeakable things, white-eyed and poisonous finned, shark-toothed and serpentine-coiled, rolls under the wakening of wind of the future the wave of the world. The depths stand naked and sunder behind it. The storms flee away. In the hollow before it the thunder is taken and snared as prey, and in its sides is the north wind bound, and its salt is of all men's tears, with light of ruin and sound of changes and pulse of years, with travail of day after day, and with trouble of hour upon hour, and bitter as blood is the spray, and the crests are as fangs that devour, and its vapours and storm of its seams are the sighings of spirits to be, and its noise as the noise in a dream, and its depth as the roots of the sea, and the height of its heads as the height of the utmost stars of the air, and the ends of the earth at the might thereof tremble, and time is made bare. Will ye bridle the deep sea with reins? Will ye chasten the high sea with rods? Will ye take her to chain with chains, who is older than all ye gods? All ye as wind shall go by, as a fire shall ye pass and be past. Ye are gods, and behold, ye shall die, and the waves be upon you at last. In the darkness of time, in the deeps of the years, in the changes of things, ye shall sleep as a slain man sleeps, and the world shall forget you for kings. Though the feet of thine high priest tread where thy lords and our forefathers trod, those these that were gods are dead, and thou being dead art a god. Though before thee the throned Cytherean be fallen, and hidden her head, yet thy kingdom shall pass, Galilean. Thy dead shall go down to thee, dead. Of the maiden thy mother men sing as a goddess with grace, clad around. Thou art throned where another was king, where another's queen she is crowned. Yea, once we had sight of another, but now she is queen, say these. Not as thine was our mother, a blossom of flowering seas, clothed round with the world's desire as with raiment and fair as the foam, and fleeter than kindled fire, and a goddess and a mother of Rome. For thine came pale and the maiden, and sister to sorrow, but ours, her deep hair heavily laden with odour and colour of flowers, white rose of the rose-white water, a silver splendour, a flame, bent down unto us that besought her, and earth grew sweet with her name. For thine came weeping, a slave among slaves, and rejected. But she came flushed from the full-flushed wave, and imperial, her foot on the sea. And the wonderful waters knew her, the winds and the viewless way. And the roses grew rosier, and bluer the sea-blue stream of the bays. Ye are fallen, our lords. By what token? We wise that ye should not fall. Ye were also fair that are broken, and one more fair than ye all. But I turn to her still, having seen she shall surely abide in the end. Goddess and maiden and queen, be near me now and befriend, O daughter of earth, of my mother, her crown and blossom of birth. I also thy brother. I go as I came unto earth, in the night, where thine eyes are as moons are in heaven, the night where thou art. Where the silence is more than all tunes, where sleep overflows from the heart, where the poppies are sweet as the rose in our world, and the red rose is white, and the wind falls faint as it blows with the fume of flowers of the night. And the murmur of spirits that sleep in the shadow of gods from afar grows dim in thine ears, and deep as the dim soul of a star. In the sweet low light of thy face, where heavens untrod by the sun. Let my soul with their souls find place, and forget what is done and undone. Thou art more than the gods who number the days of our temporal breath. Let these give labor and slumber, but thou, Proserpine, death. Therefore now, at thy feet, I abide for a season in silence. I know I shall die, as my fathers died, and sleep as they sleep. Even so, for the glass of the years is brittle, wherein we gaze for a span. A little soul for a little bear upon this corpse which is a man. So long I endure, no longer, and love not again, neither weep. For there is no God found stronger than death, and death is asleep. I'm not sure if I should really do an analysis of the poem, but it really is kind of written from the perspective of Julian as he is dying, cursing Christ, glorifying the gods of the seas, of fertility, cursing at the Virgin Mary, cursing at Jesus. It's in one way a funeral oration to paganism, and in another way a glorification of Christian triumph. And I think everyone should read it for himself to understand it. There is a book about Julian the Apostate by a Russian author whose name I forget right now. It's not Mussorgsky, who is a composer, but that name is in my head right now, so I can't remember the name of the author. But there is this book about Julian the Apostate. I think it's called The Last Emperor or something like that. And that's quite an interesting book about his life and a sort of fictionalized version of events. And it's a 19th century Russian book, which, if you've never read 19th century Russian literature, it's lovely melancholic in a very, very depressing way. You shouldn't start reading that sort of literature if you are a little faint of heart, or maybe not inclined to severe depression and alcoholism, I guess. Because that is really what Russian literature is all about. And even the modern Russian spirit has not changed in that way at all today. Anyway, it's actually an English poem from around the turn of the 19th century. I rather like it. I really like this character of Julian the Apostate, a man alone trying to singularly swing back through his own will the empire and the ideas that he loved. But really, the flow of the times were against him, and no singular man could turn back the changes that were happening.